Hi, welcome to Om's Planetary Watch. My name's Olga Morales, and today I'm going to be looking at the two eclipses that are coming up. One on the 17th of February, the solar eclipse, and on the 3rd of March will be a lunar eclipse. But I'm going to bring the analysis a little bit differently. I'm going to be looking at the decans, the astrological decans, and also the tarot cards that go with it. It's a system that I learned from this book many years ago called The Tarot and Astrology by Muriel Hasbrook. Now, she published it in 1940. I think she wrote it before then. And the reason I got into this was because W.D. Gann, if you know me, I'm into W.D. Gann. He was a stock market trader and astrologer, the 1900s. He wrote a book called The Tunnel Through the Air. And in that book, there's 36 chapters. Now, I know that he didn't do anything by chance. Everything was planned, and there's always symbolism in number, okay? But there's also something else. Safariel, he was another astrologer. He wrote a book about the 36-year Hebrew cycle. And I've done a lot of work on that as well. And so this 36 became something that then led me to write this book, The Astrological Decans, Tarot, and the Stock Market. Okay, so I put a lot of work into all this, but the fact is that it's going back to a more ancient system. And the Decans were really came to us through Egypt because they were using the Decans, the 10 degrees. Decan means 10, like decade. 10 degrees or days, a new star would be rising on horizon, and that was the basis of their calendar. Okay, so let's get started, and I'll explain a bit more how this all works. So, go. Let's move you away a little bit on the side. So this is our normal 360-degree wheel. And what I've done here, I've actually put the decans in. Okay, so if you count them, there's 36. And each decan is ruled by a planet. Okay, and each decan also is related to a sign. There's always a sign, but also an element. This is where the tarot comes into it because we need to know the fire signs, earth, air, and water are all connected to the four elements in the tarot deck. Okay, so everything is linked. That's why it works so well. So you can see that there's an order here. The order starts with the planet that's furthest out, which was Saturn. And then we've got Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon. And it keeps going around. That's called the Chaldean order. That's that part. Okay. And so, but then we know, I think you should all know that the days of the week, there's another order. Okay. And the days of the week are named after the planets. So Sunday is the sun's day, Monday is the moon's day, Tuesday is Mars's day, Wednesday is Mercury's day, Thursday is Thor's day, which was Jupiter, Thursday, Friday is Venus's day, and then Saturn is Saturn's day. Okay, that's Saturday. And then the other planets, they couldn't see them, so it was just the seven. So the seven planetary rulers is what's used for this layout of the decans. It's so important. And when you do Safariel's work in the Hebrew cycle, which is in my book, sorry, it's a big plug, but it's unique because I don't think anyone's done in-depth Safariel's work on that whole cycle. But anyway, and I've applied it to the stock market, so it's very unique. And this is what's important about how it all comes together. It's more traditional and ancient. Now, the decans also used to be called faces, like a face, okay? And I believe that's from a tradition where the rising sign is always the ascendant supposed to describe how we look, our appearance. And the fact that they were naming their children the star that was rising at this, whatever star was rising on the horizon, they would be naming their children after that star. Okay. And so I can understand why the whole faces, the decans, and all that was related to this cycle. Okay. So, did I say that? Doesn't this look like a roulette wheel? Have I said that before? I don't know, but yeah, there's 36, right? All the games by chance are all related to astrology and the cycles of the planets and everything. Even the planetary hours of the day are ruled by a planet. Okay, there's a whole system that was very traditional. Like people, Safra was using planetary hours to pick horse racing, any game of chance. They were using the system. But let's get to the eclipse, okay? So we can see this eclipse on the 17th of February is at 28 degrees of Aquarius, okay? And it's in this decan, the last decan of Aquarius, which is ruled by the moon. Isn't that interesting? Well, guess what number that decan is? 33. You can't make this up. I've been talking about 33 days, years. I've done a whole video on it. If you should look back, it's called The Tunnel. And it goes into, if you've watched the Dark series on Netflix, where there's this loop of 33 years and they say that the planets come back every 33 years, you'll understand. I explain a little bit more in that video, okay? But it happens to be the 33rd decan, starting from obviously Aries. We're up to 33. And the other interesting thing is that the moon's exaltation is at 3 degrees of Taurus, and 3 degrees of Taurus actually equals 33. You can't make this up. The synchronicity is amazing. So then what do we do? According to Muriel's system, okay, then we have a look at what tarot card from the minor arcana is actually related to this decan. And it actually comes to the Seventh of Swords, all right? And they give it this key word called unstable effort. So what it also says, this is just a little bit of write-up from my book, it says that this decan highlights strategy, deception, indirect action in this period where matters unfold behind the scenes, requiring caution, careful planning, and emotional intelligence. The moon emphasizes intuition, secrecy, and hidden motivations, bringing increased focus on espionage, covert maneuvers, and uncovering concealed agendas. Clarity comes through awareness, discretion, and commitment to integrity and transparency. Now, the other thing I have to stress about this one, which I've already done a video about this eclipse, because it's actually square Uranus here, okay? So that makes it more volatile. And it's in the decan of Saturn. Now, remember that the outer planets are going to spend a longer time in this span of 10 degrees. And that's a cycle in itself. It's going to be interesting when Uranus moves into Gemini. This house, this decan is a difficult one. It's in the book if you want to read it, okay? So this is how it all works. Now, let me go back to that. So this is an air, because Aquarius is air, okay? That's related to the swords in the tarot. And so these are all the other, so there's the swords in Aquarius, there's the Gemini swords, okay? These is the house of Gemini, and then there's the Libra, okay? Now, apparently in the old eclipse books, it says if eclipses are in air signs, there's famine, sickness, pestilence, tempest, stormy winds, and hurtful to mankind. Now, I know this sounds very fatalistic, but we have had a lot of this, okay? The storms, the winds, the tempest, pestilence we've had, obviously, COVID would be a pestilence, but there's also still things happening on the world at the moment. So it's just the air quality, right? Something's in the air, and also big winds. Okay, we've had Sicily, which has had a cyclone, and my parents are Sicilian. Very rare, and it's basically the whole coastline of some of those little towns has been just they've completely collapsed into the sea. So like this is the stormy winds. Okay, so the other thing you can do with this is that I'm not a traditional astrologer, but when you're looking at these old systems, you really do need to make, if you want to make a judgment about the decans or the faces, how are the planets relating to one another? And you see here, you've got face. This is what decan means. And you can see in this respect, it gives a point system to how the planets are, okay, in terms of the essential dignities. This is Ptolemy's system. And it's really good to see who's in mutual reception. So you can see that Jupiter and Mercury are in mutual receptions. What that means is that Mercury is in Pisces, okay, which is ruled by Jupiter in the old system, and Mercury and Jupiter happens to be in the decan ruled by Mercury, okay? So they're both in each other's decan, and they also happen to be trine. So that's actually very nice, but it's not actually related to the eclipse itself. The eclipse is actually square to Uranus, which, but I think this could be, bringing more energy to the Mercury. Um, so it could be a good thing in a way, but if anyone's a traditional astrologer that's watching this video, maybe you can give me more insights to how this chart plays out in that respect. Okay. Now, I've got some old astrology books, and as I said, eclipses were always quite bad omens, okay? And they had a way of describing it. And so the solar eclipse on the 33rd decan of the moon, this is the old world wording: death and slaughter of sheep and beasts of the field, all right? Now, when I saw that, the first thing that came to my mind was something like mad cow disease, okay? That sort of thing. But it could be also remembering that the livestock was food, the supply, this was economic stability, survival, national wealth. Animals used to be the economy, okay? So there was never just about always animals, it was also about food systems and sustenance. So what could this imply for us, right? How can we interpret it for us? Well, maybe there's stress on food production, livestock, and agricultural system due to environmental extremes, which we're having. I mean, America's, there's an ice storm going through there. We've got flooding in the UK. Australia's got fire and flooding. And I think I just saw that Portugal's been flooded. Obviously, Sicily's had its. So the world, in a way, there's global weather is extreme in both hemispheres. So, yeah, of course, that's going to have an impact on livestock and also commodities, because if they're washed out, if there's drought or flooding or whatever, it can have an impact. So there can be issues affecting health, food safety and regulation, climate related, as I just said, and also this decan pointed to loss of livestock. In modern terms, we'd associate that with food security, biosecurity, or agricultural stress. So this is a possibility, okay? I'm just giving you the information and we can watch if this pans out or not. Now, the lunar eclipse, what's happening for the lunar eclipse? You can see this is a total lunar eclipse. When the nodes are close to the luminaries or the sun and the moon, that means it's a total eclipse, okay? So this one's in, it's actually in Virgo because we look at the sign of the moon, okay, 12 degrees, and the sun's in Pisces. So this is the axis here. What's nice about this is that it's actually trine Jupiter and also Jupiter sextile the moon. So there's a Jupiter feel to this one and not a square to Uranus, although Mars is coming to that, not at the moment. Don't worry about Mars for the moment. Okay. So this decan is ruled by Venus, okay? And it's Virgo. Virgo is an earth sign. So this is an earth lunar eclipse. We need to understand that it's an earth sign. So when you look at your tarot cards, it's going to be about the pentacles, money, and actually the earth, okay? And it's decan number 17. And the card associated with it is the 9 of Pentacles, okay? And the word for it is material gain. So it's actually a positive one. This decan emphasizes material gain, self-sufficiency, and financial independence. It represents enjoying rewards of personal effort, refinement, and discipline. Venus enhances themes of luxury, comfort, and personal value, highlighting periods of economic prosperity, increased confidence, and the ability to enjoy life's pleasures through one's own achievement. So it looks like a positive one. And the actual degree decan that the sun is in is ruled by Jupiter, okay? And that's 35. And this is all to do also with the Nine of Cups, okay, which is material happiness. So this is interesting because we've got both Jupiter and Venus. You know, obviously, they're opposite one another, but they're both giving us positive material happiness, and they're trine to Jupiter. All right. So this actually looks good. This decan represents fulfillment, pleasure, and emotional satisfaction. It signifies the attainment of desires, contentment, and enjoyment of life's reward. Jupiter amplifies themes of abundance, success, and well-being, highlighting periods of celebration, confidence, and collective for personal happiness through achieved goals. So that seems like a good one, okay? The other thing is, in the old book, this one actually talks about this placement, because Jupiter's to do with sort of regal people in um, positions of authority, not so much Saturn, but it talks about causes of death of some famous and excellent man, the destruction of fish, tidal waves, and inundations, because it's in the Pisces area, okay? Well, we have had flooding, okay? And the death caused by a famous, excellent man, that could be anybody in the world. But I remember when I did this a couple of years ago, it said the death of a queen, and it happened to be the year that the queen actually passed away. So I just put it in there because, you know, it just happens. So we'll see in that respect. Now, the Earth Pentacles are Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. I don't know why that was in black and white. Okay, so they say when eclipses are in earth signs, they foreshadow scarcity of corn products of the earth. There's more probability of earthquakes, mining disasters, and agricultural depression. So there is this thing happening about agriculture. So maybe if there's scarcity, that means that prices for commodities is going to increase, if that's the case, okay? So traditionally, you can see that Mercury is not in a good position here because, okay, so this eclipse in Virgo, so Mercury wills is a ruler and also exalted in Virgo. So it's opposite, and it actually gets detriment and fall. So it's minus 14, okay? So the ruler of the actual eclipse is not in a good standing. So there's different ways of interpreting these eclipses, okay? Do we do it just with the sun and the moon? Or do we incorporate all the other planets? And I like to use essential dignities. As I said, I'm not a traditional astrologer, but when you're using an old system like this, you need to incorporate these essential dignities, okay? So, as I said, if you are a traditional astrologer, you can put more comments. I appreciate them, but I've put it up there for you. Okay, so thank you for listening. That's a different way of using the decans. You can do this for your own chart. You can have a look at where your chart fits in with what decan. It's really interesting to do that. You can make your own little mandala of your chart. And also you can experiment with different methods of analyzing, what I've done in my book. And sorry, another plug is I've applied this system to the stock market because that's what Muriel was doing. Okay. She said there were periods when it's bullish and then periods when it's bearish, depending on what decan was involved. And so, of course, it's a fascinating cycle or way of analyzing these cycles. And so, thank you for listening.